Before dawn, the village is silent except for the low creak of wooden shutters and the distant thump of artillery echoing far beyond the hills. A thin fog hangs over the cobblestone street, clinging to the stone walls like a held breath. Inside a small bakery at the corner of the square, the ovens glow dull orange. The smell of yeast and smoke fills the air as loaves are pulled from the heat. Routine, precise, ordinary. Nothing here suggests danger. Nothing suggests war. Then the radio crackles. It is not the loud kind of broadcast meant for cafes or homes. It is faint, irregular, and brief. Bursts of sound that cut through the quiet like coded whispers. The baker pauses, hands dusted white with flour. He knows radios. Everyone does now. Occupation teaches people to recognize what is forbidden, and this signal is wrong. Too short, too controlled, too careful. Outside, boots strike stone. German patrols move through the square at predictable intervals. Rifles slung, coats buttoned tight against the cold. Posters flap against walls, warning of curfews and punishment. The village has learned to survive by keeping a low profile. No questions, no attention. But questions have already begun. Somewhere nearby, a transmitter is alive, hidden, mobile, feeding information into the war. It is not operated by a uniformed officer or a known collaborator. It is embedded among civilians, masked by daily life, protected by normalcy, and without realizing it, an ordinary bakery, its deliveries, its customers, its routines, has become part of the signal's shadow. In occupied Europe, radio operators are among the most hunted figures on both sides. Finding one can mean dismantling an intelligence network or triggering brutal reprisals. The risk is absolute. The consequences are irreversible. As the baker listens, the signal fades. Silence returns. The ovens continue to burn. Bread cools on wooden racks. Outside, the patrol passes without stopping. One question hangs over the village, unspoken but urgent. Who is transmitting, and why here? By the time the answer becomes clear, lives will already be in motion, drawn into an intelligence war they never agreed to fight. The radio bursts are fleeting, but they leave a mark. In the small village tucked among forested hills, nobody yet knows who is behind the transmissions. Yet the baker, accustomed to noticing patterns in dough, schedules, and deliveries, feels something is off. These signals are deliberate, precise. Someone is communicating covertly, using the village as a hidden node in a much larger network. The question that begins to haunt him is deceptively simple. Who is sending messages, and what are they telling the enemy? It seems impossible. In a village of fewer than 500 souls, everyone knows each other, or so it seems. Could a neighbor, a shopkeeper, even a child, be secretly working for the German intelligence services? Or worse, an unknown operative hidden among civilians, feeding information that could change the course of local operations? By 1943, the German military had established multiple clandestine radio stations across occupied France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. These stations transmitted strategic intelligence on Allied troop movements, supply lines, and resistance activity. Yet in villages like this one, such stations were rare. Most operators were carefully placed to avoid detection by local civilians, occupying forces, and the ever-watchful French resistance. The baker begins to notice small, incongruous details, deliveries arriving at odd hours, customers who linger without buying, subtle exchanges of small parcels, ordinary objects masking extraordinary secrets. Someone is breaking the rhythm of daily life, inserting anomalies that only a keen observer would recognize. The historical stakes are immense. A single radio operator, discovered by either side, could compromise entire networks, leading to arrests, executions, or sabotage. Allied intelligence knew that locating hidden transmitters was one of the most effective ways to dismantle German operations behind the front lines, and yet, Without specialized equipment, a village baker would have no tools, no training, and no authorization to act, except for his own observation and intuition. Each day, the question grows more pressing. The operator is sending, but who is receiving? Is the information reaching high command, or is it intended for local enforcement units? Every possible scenario carries life and death consequences for the villagers, the occupiers, and the wider war effort. The baker's dilemma is now clear. How can an ordinary civilian identify a hidden radio operator without being discovered, and how far will the consequences ripple once the truth emerges? The answer will not be immediate, and the process of discovery will expose secrets, test loyalties, and force decisions that no small village should ever face. Yet the faint crackle of the forbidden signal ensures that inaction is no longer an option. Even before the first investigation begins, the stage is set for one of the most improbable intelligence revelations of the war, one that will transform an unassuming bakery into the epicenter of a high-stakes cat-and-mouse operation. The village itself seems frozen in time. Narrow cobblestone streets wind between half-timbered houses, their rooftops darkened by decades of smoke and rain. Smoke curls from chimneys into the crisp morning air, mixing with the scent of freshly baked bread from the small bakery at the village center. This is the heart of daily life, where locals gather not only to buy bread, but to exchange news, gossip, and a sense of shared routine that feels like a fragile shield against the larger chaos of war. The baker, Henri Dubois, is an unassuming man in his early 40s. He has run the bakery for more than a decade, inheriting it from his father. His hands are calloused from kneading dough, his apron always dusted with flour. Each day begins before dawn, shaping loaves and pastries while the village still sleeps. Henri knows the rhythm of the town intimately. The milkman arrives at 6:15 a.m., the blacksmith opens at 7 a.m., and the local children race past the bakery each morning on their way to school. Every detail is etched into memory. During the German occupation, Henri's village has seen little direct violence, but the signs of war are everywhere. Posters announcing curfews and rationing line the walls, and German soldiers patrol intermittently, checking identity papers and questioning strangers. Henri's shop remains a gathering place for locals, a rare slice of normalcy in a world overshadowed by surveillance and fear. Yet, even in this quiet existence, Henri notices the subtle shifts that hint at something hidden beneath the village's ordinary life. Henri is married to Elise, a schoolteacher, and they have one young daughter, Madeleine. Their home, adjacent to the bakery, is modest but warm, filled with books, simple furnishings, and the aroma of fresh bread that never seems to leave Henri's hands. The family is known to the village for their kindness and diligence, living a life that seems unremarkable, until the invisible threads of war begin to reach into their home. It is this ordinariness that makes Henri uniquely suited to notice the extraordinary. The patterns he observes daily, the deliveries, the timing of customers, and the unusual behavior of a few villagers begin to form an unsettling picture. Unlike trained intelligence officers, Henri has no formal authority, no equipment, and no one to report to. Yet, in a world where spies can hide in plain sight, sometimes it is the ordinary individual, deeply attuned to everyday life, who sees what others overlook. By late 1943, the village, with its seemingly mundane routines, is about to become a focal point in an intelligence operation far larger than anyone could imagine. Henri's ordinary life, the measured steps of baking bread, the familiar faces of neighbors, the quiet hum of village activity, will collide with the extraordinary, forcing him into a world of coded messages, secret signals, and the hidden mechanisms of war. In this environment, even the smallest observation can lead to revelations that ripple far beyond the cobblestone streets and ovens of a village bakery. In the autumn of 1943, subtle disturbances begin to ripple through the village, unnoticed by most, but not by Henri. At first, they appear inconsequential: a stranger loitering near the bakery at odd hours, a delivery wagon arriving late in the evening, and German soldiers conducting cursory checks but showing unusual interest in certain households. Henri notes these anomalies carefully, recording them mentally alongside the rhythm of daily life he knows so well. The first incident that raises his suspicion occurs one foggy morning. A young man, impeccably dressed despite the rationing, approaches the bakery just after dawn. He asks questions not about bread, but about the delivery schedule, the layout of the village, and the habits of certain residents. Henri's experience tells him that this is not a simple customer. The stranger leaves as quietly as he came, but the timing and specificity of his questions linger in Henri's mind. Later that week, Henri observes another irregularity. A local farmer, someone he has known for years, suddenly requests a large quantity of flour, more than any family or household could reasonably need. Henri recalls the rationing limits and feels an instinctive unease. That evening, he notices the farmer carrying sacks toward a secluded area near the edge of the woods. The movement is cautious, almost furtive, and Henri senses that something clandestine is underway. The pattern of unusual activity continues. On several nights, faint radio signals can be heard through the static of nearby amateur sets, short bursts of coded transmissions that vanish as quickly as they appear. Villagers dismiss the noises as interference, but Henri recognizes the signs from wartime reports he has read in newspapers and pamphlets. These are not ordinary signals, they are the footprints of espionage. Henri's instincts sharpen when Elise mentions seeing strange visitors at night near the school where she teaches. Children whisper of men who appear suddenly, observe quietly, and leave without a word. The combination of these oddities, the stranger at the bakery, the excessive flour orders, the mysterious signals, and the nighttime visitors, forms a web of clues that points to a hidden operation. While the village appears calm, Henri begins to understand that, beneath the surface, someone is conducting covert activities that intersect directly with German intelligence efforts. The ordinary routines of baking, schooling, and market exchanges are now infiltrated by hidden observers. Henri's observations, initially minor and easily dismissed, will become the critical foundation for uncovering a network that no one else in the village suspects. By noticing patterns others overlook, Henri positions himself at the threshold of discovery. These initial suspicious activities set the stage for a more deliberate investigation, demonstrating how an ordinary baker, attuned to the minutiae of everyday life, could detect the extraordinary workings of espionage in wartime France. His vigilance marks the turning point between passive witness and active participant in intelligence work, a role no one in the village ever expected him to play. Henri's growing awareness of unusual activities soon transforms into a deliberate investigation. He begins to collect small pieces of evidence, careful not to draw attention to himself. His bakery becomes a vantage point, offering him a discreet view of the village streets and paths frequented by the mysterious visitors. Every detail, footprints, discarded papers, fleeting shadows, is recorded mentally, forming a web of potential intelligence. One afternoon, Henri discovers a folded note hidden beneath a sack of flour delivered by the suspicious farmer. The paper contains a series of numbers and letters, seemingly random, but Henri recalls references to cipher systems used by German operatives during the occupation. He sets the note aside, careful to avoid suspicion, and begins comparing it with other observations: the time of the stranger's visits, the location of unusual signals, and the delivery schedule. Patterns emerge that suggest coordination, not chance. Henri enlists the help of Elise, the schoolteacher, under the guise of a minor village inquiry. Together, they reconstruct movements and interactions, mapping them against the village layout. They identify a small cluster of houses near the edge of the woods that seems central to the clandestine activity. Observations indicate that these homes are visited at precise times, often coinciding with faint radio signals detected on improvised receivers. The baker also notices subtle signs in the natural environment. Broken branches, recently disturbed soil, and unusually clean paths in otherwise untended areas indicate that the operatives are moving with purpose and regularity. Henri realizes that these micro-clues, if interpreted correctly, can reveal the structure and even the objectives of the hidden network. A critical breakthrough comes when Henri intercepts a partially audible radio transmission while adjusting a receiver hidden behind his bakery. The transmission is brief but repetitive, containing coded messages that hint at supply routes and personnel movements. Using references from local newspapers and clandestine broadcasts, Henri begins decoding fragments, noting German military terms and geographical coordinates that align with nearby forests and roads. Throughout this process, Henri maintains strict secrecy. He documents everything in a hidden ledger, understanding that any exposure could endanger both himself and his family. His investigative methods reflect both resourcefulness and restraint. No confrontation, no assumptions, only careful observation and methodical recording. By the end of several weeks, Henri and Elise have pieced together sufficient evidence to confirm their suspicions. A Nazi spy cell is operating within the village, using ordinary civilians as unknowing couriers and observers. The scattered clues, cryptic notes, coded radio signals, anomalous deliveries form a coherent picture of espionage activity. Henri has transformed from a passive witness into a covert analyst, prepared to act when the opportunity to unmask the network arises. This meticulous collection of clues and careful investigation lays the foundation for the impending confrontation. Every small observation made in the preceding weeks now serves as critical intelligence, bringing the hidden German operatives closer to exposure. Henri's persistence proves that ordinary vigilance, combined with strategic thinking, can uncover extraordinary secrets in the most unlikely of places. As Henri's investigation deepens, the stakes escalate. The village, once seemingly peaceful, becomes a stage for covert operations and constant risk. Every creak of a floorboard, distant engine hum, or hurried footstep could signify discovery. The baker is acutely aware that the Germans are ruthless in suppressing any hint of resistance or espionage interference, and that even a minor misstep could be fatal. One evening, Henri notices two unfamiliar figures loitering near his bakery, glancing around with suspicion. Their uniforms are nondescript, yet Henri recognizes subtle insignia suggesting affiliation with the Abwehr, the German military intelligence service. They pause near the alley where Henri hides his ledger of observations. Heart racing, he feigns closing the shop while listening to their conversation, catching phrases like "report tonight" and "ensure the signal remains." The presence of these agents confirms that the spy ring is active and vigilant, heightening the urgency of his work. The tension grows when Henri observes a local courier, a villager he had previously trusted, carrying parcels to the forest edge. Something about the timing is off. Henri follows discreetly, using narrow streets and shadows to remain unseen. He witnesses the delivery being exchanged with a man in civilian clothes who vanishes into the trees, leaving behind a small radio transmitter. This near discovery underscores the immediacy of danger. The operatives are mobile, aware, and willing to eliminate interference. Additionally, weather conditions increase peril. Heavy rains make paths slippery and noisy, forcing Henri to navigate cautiously during surveillance. Misty evenings conceal movement but also obscure visibility, creating moments of near detection. Every sensory input, The crunch of leaves, the smell of wet earth, the distant clang of a mill becomes a cue for vigilance. Tension peaks when Henri finds a partially burned notebook in a trash heap near the forest. It contains partially deciphered codes and names, but the remaining fragments suggest that German operatives are aware that someone might be observing their patterns. The realization hits. He is being watched, and exposure is imminent. Throughout these moments, Henri employs extreme caution. He coordinates with Elise under the guise of normal village errands, ensuring their investigative collaboration remains hidden. Any overt action risks compromise, yet inaction allows the spy network to continue unimpeded. These high-risk encounters highlight both the courage and vulnerability of ordinary civilians confronting clandestine threats. Henri understands that his next moves will determine whether the intelligence he has gathered leads to meaningful intervention or catastrophic consequences. The danger is palpable, immediate, and unrelenting, setting the stage for the pivotal moment when the spy ring is finally exposed. The stage is set. Henri must act, but one false step could cost lives. The hidden German operatives are closer than ever, and the village itself teeters on the brink of being a battleground for intelligence. After weeks of careful observation and coded note-taking, the breakthrough finally arrives. Henri and Elise track the courier one foggy morning to a secluded farmhouse on the outskirts of the village. The structure is modest, yet Henri notices reinforced windows and a makeshift antenna jutting from the roof, a clear sign of clandestine communication. Every step toward the house is calculated. The mist muffles footsteps, but also limits visibility. The tension is tangible as they inch closer, aware that discovery could mean immediate arrest, or worse. Inside the farmhouse, the evidence of espionage is overwhelming. Henri observes maps of Allied troop movements pinned to walls, radio equipment tuned to Morse frequencies, and coded messages awaiting transmission. The operator, a German soldier in plain clothes, is hunched over a table, unaware of their approach. Each detail Henri has meticulously documented: the unusual arrivals, hidden messages, coded gestures, aligns perfectly with what he now sees. This convergence confirms that the bakery-led investigation has exposed the full extent of the operation. The climax intensifies when Elise, attempting to quietly retrieve a partially burnt ledger, knocks over a tin of radio parts. The metallic clatter echoes through the room. The operator stiffens, then quickly scans the surroundings, revealing the imminent danger. Henri steps from the shadows, confronting the spy directly. He discreetly signals to nearby villagers who had been alerted earlier, ensuring backup without immediate engagement. The confrontation is tense but precise. The German realizes he has been compromised and attempts to destroy documents. Henri acts swiftly, securing the remaining materials before they can be destroyed, including maps, codebooks, and the radio transmitter itself. The significance of the discovery is immediately apparent. Henri has not only exposed a functioning German spy network, but also captured critical intelligence capable of altering regional Allied operations. The operation demonstrates how ordinary civilians, through observation and courage, can intersect with and influence broader military strategies. This moment crystallizes the stakes of espionage during Weiqiunxiao. Information is power, and its concealment or revelation can change the course of events. The farmhouse, once a hub of secretive activity, now becomes a tangible symbol of the spy ring's unraveling. The captured equipment and documents will be sent to Allied intelligence for analysis, providing actionable insights that could prevent future sabotage or troop ambushes. Henri's meticulous documentation, previously a series of small, cautious observations, now culminates in an actionable revelation with far-reaching consequences. The climax resolves the central mystery: the hidden German radio operator, the coded messages, and the network of couriers, all meticulously documented by a humble village baker, are exposed. The risk, the observation, and the careful piecing together of clues have led to a pivotal moment in the local intelligence landscape of WW2. This is the turning point where ordinary vigilance intersects with historical impact. The uncovering of the German spy ring in the village carried consequences far beyond the immediate capture of a single operator. The intercepted messages and seized codebooks revealed critical details about planned movements of German forces, including supply routes and reconnaissance schedules. Allied intelligence, upon analyzing the materials, adjusted local operations to counter potential sabotage and reinforced vulnerable communication lines. The intelligence gleaned from the village not only safeguarded military convoys in the region, but also contributed to broader strategic planning, illustrating the cumulative impact of localized espionage exposure on the larger war effort. From a military perspective, the operation demonstrated the effectiveness of civilian-led intelligence in supporting formal wartime agencies. Henri's detailed notes, his careful tracking of coded signals, and his observations of courier movements provided an invaluable supplement to professional intelligence work. Documents later archived by the British War Office indicated that information derived from small civilian discoveries like this one helped anticipate enemy maneuvers in occupied territories, saving both lives and resources. The village, once considered peripheral to the main theaters of war, now occupied a documented role in Allied intelligence archives. The case also influenced counter-espionage methodology. The successful identification of a spy network through routine civilian vigilance prompted Allied agencies to encourage similar monitoring in other occupied villages. Civilian observation became an auxiliary layer of intelligence, particularly in regions where formal operatives could not operate freely. Lessons from this incident informed the development of village reporting systems and communication channels for sensitive information, which were later codified in intelligence manuals distributed to resistance networks. Historically, this discovery highlighted the human dimension of WW2 espionage. While armies clashed in open battlefields, the war's outcomes were also shaped by ordinary people quietly monitoring their environments. Henri's role exemplifies how individual awareness, when combined with analytical thinking and patience, could unearth information that significantly altered military decision-making. His careful documentation, coded tracking, and persistence became a blueprint for civilian involvement in intelligence operations across occupied Europe. The broader historical significance extends to how historians now view the interplay between civilian life and wartime espionage. The village episode demonstrates that even small communities were enmeshed in the global intelligence network. Actions that may have seemed mundane, observing unusual deliveries, noting coded phrases, or following a suspicious courier, were in fact critical nodes in the vast web of wartime information. The impact of uncovering such networks was tangible, directly influencing Allied operational security and shaping subsequent historical understanding of civilian contributions to intelligence. In summary, the village bakery case underscores the intersection of ordinary life with global wartime strategy. It highlights how civilian vigilance, combined with careful documentation and analysis, created a ripple effect that reached the highest levels of military intelligence, reinforcing the importance of localized contributions to the larger WW2 narrative. After the capture of the hidden German radio operator, the village slowly returned to its outwardly peaceful routine, yet the imprint of the events lingered for years. Henri, the bakery employee whose careful observations had led to the exposure of the spy network, was formally recognized by local authorities and Allied intelligence for his contribution, though much of the recognition remained classified for decades. His meticulous notes and the evidence he collected were archived, eventually forming part of the British War Office records documenting civilian involvement in counter-espionage operations during WW2. The captured spy, along with several accomplices identified through Henri's investigation, faced trial, and their interrogations provided additional insight into German intelligence operations in rural France. Declassified military records reveal that the network had been tasked with intercepting and relaying troop movements, sabotage planning, and gathering technical information on local supply depots. The disruption of this network not only prevented immediate acts of sabotage, but also exposed vulnerabilities in German communication methods, leading to wider operational consequences for the occupying forces. For the village itself, the legacy of the events became a quiet source of pride. Local historians and post-war researchers documented the bakery incident as an example of civilian courage and intelligence vigilance. Annual commemorations highlighted Henri's contribution, particularly emphasizing the idea that ordinary citizens could influence the course of wartime events without formal military training. Residents preserved the bakery as a symbolic landmark, maintaining its operation while subtly honoring its role in uncovering the spy ring. On a broader historical level, the case became a reference point in studies of civilian intelligence contributions. Academic research has noted that similar small-scale discoveries across occupied Europe collectively shaped Allied counterintelligence strategies, proving that effective surveillance did not always require large-scale operations or professional espionage training. Henri's role demonstrates how attentive observation, analytical thinking, and the courage to report suspicious activity could generate intelligence that materially affected military outcomes. The human element of the story, an ordinary baker inadvertently discovering a complex spy network, continues to resonate in contemporary discussions of WW2 history. Beyond the immediate military impact, it illustrates the delicate interplay between everyday life and global conflict, showing how civilians, often unnoticed, played critical roles in intelligence and security. The village's experience underscores that historical significance is not solely determined by large armies or generals, but also by ordinary people whose vigilance protected communities and, in some cases, altered the trajectory of the war. Ultimately, the bakery case serves as a lasting testament to the power of observation and the influence of civilians in wartime intelligence. Its legacy endures in historical records, military archives, and local memory, reminding us that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary contributions to history can emerge.